What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we are going to be doing another mock draft review. We're going to be discussing Bucky Brooks mock draft 3.0 over on NFL.com. There's some interesting landing spots in this, and also this is one of the first mock drafts that I have seen where it isn't a offensive frenzy bonanza. So we'll talk about the few landing spots that these 2024 rookies for your Dynasty fantasy football teams received. We'll talk about the fits, we'll talk about the implications to those fits, and then we'll talk about how that could affect their draft stock. So with that being said, let's not waste any more time. Let's hop right into today's video and let's start off with the first pick. So coming off the board, round one, pick one for Bucky Brooks in this mock draft. It's not a surprise to anybody. It is Caleb Williams for the Chicago Bears. And Caleb Williams is kind of penciled in already as the QB1 in this class, as the number one pick. We know this. Coming off of a season in 2023 where he had 3,633 yards, good for 9.4 yards per attempt, 68% completion percentage, and 30 passing touchdowns with 5 interceptions. Caleb Williams going to the Chicago Bears. This is a fit that is going to be very ideal for Caleb Williams. We've talked about how Justin Fields was not set up for success when he was picked by the Chicago Bears. Obviously, they had to do a lot of cleanup. They were building that roster around Justin Fields and finally got it figured out, but they did all of that too late. The rookie clock has kind of reset now on that quarterback position. They're going to be looking to take another player, and they did fall into that number one pick from the Carolina Panthers in that trade last year, going into an offense where they would have DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet, DeAndre Swift, and potentially even more receiving weapons in this mock draft. Spoiler alert, maybe, but this is an offense that is going to be very good for Caleb Williams. He should have some opportunity to grow as a NFL quarterback, and people are going to say that he's best out of structure. I think he's good in structure too. Overall, this is my number one quarterback prospect in the class, and that's not a hot take because most people have him as the number one quarterback in the class. He is going to be very good, and really this is the expectation for Dynasty Fantasy Football League, so we shouldn't be surprised when Caleb Williams goes number one overall to the Chicago Bears. Now, with the second pick in the NFL draft, Bucky Brooks has the Washington Commanders selecting quarterback Jayden Daniels out of LSU, and there's been a little bit of smoke about Jayden Daniels maybe not being the pick in Washington. We've heard rumblings of maybe McCarthy being their choice. I think it is smoke right now. When you look at what Jayden Daniels was able to do as a senior there at LSU this year in 2023, played in 12 games, threw for 3,800 yards. That was good for 11.7 yards per attempt, had a 72% completion percentage, 40 passing touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Also did a lot for you on the ground with his legs. A true dual threat quarterback at the next level. And going to Washington, he's going to be able to play with guys like Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Diami Brown, Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, and he's going to be playing for an offensive coordinator that's going to like to throw the football. Cliff Kingsbury coming over from the Arizona Cardinals, obviously as his last NFL coaching job. He is now the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders. Head coach is Dan Quinn from the Dallas Cowboys, and this feels like a good fit. I mean, if we know a offensive coordinator is able to kind of help groom and cater an offense to a quarterback with dual threat ability, it's going to be Cliff Kingsbury who is able to do it with Kyler Murray. So ultimately, I do like this fit for Jayden Daniels, and I do think that Washington is probably the best fit for him early in the NFL draft where we expect him to go, and that's where he's going, number 2 overall to the Washington Commanders. Now moving on with the 3rd overall pick in the NFL draft, Bucky Brooks has the New England Patriots selecting quarterback out of Michigan, McCarthy. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, this feels like a huge mistake for the New England Patriots because I have talked about it at length this offseason of how I do not feel like this New England Patriots offense is built to be able to support a rookie quarterback. And going with a guy like McCarthy, where we expect him to kind of need to learn a little bit more at the NFL level. He's not fully developed as a prospect yet, and he's going to have to get better at some things. I don't think that this is the environment for McCarthy to do it. Last year at Michigan, he threw for 2,851 yards, had a 73% completion percentage, so that was very good, but 22 passing touchdowns and 4 interceptions. He obviously wasn't asked to throw a lot at Michigan. I think he's kind of shown, at least at the pro day, at the combine, some of these other events, that is obviously not something that I think we should worry about. But also we want to know why that wasn't a thing that they did at Michigan. Was it because they didn't trust McCarthy, or was it just because it wasn't needed with the run game and the scheme that they had? Going here to New England, I mean, we've seen them fail guys like Mac Jones before. We've seen them fail other players in this offense before as well. Getting to play with Ramondre Stevenson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyquan Thornton, Demario Douglas, Kendrick Bourne, KJ Osborne, like these are the receiving options for McCarthy. And then you have a defensive-minded head coach there in the building as well. It feels like this is such a bad fit for JJ McCarthy. And if this were the case, I think a lot of people would probably be out on JJ McCarthy despite him getting the draft capital. It just feels like a trap. And honestly, I like JJ McCarthy, but he's going to have to go to a situation where we can kind of see him and have confidence in him being developed as a quarterback at the next level. New England is not the spot for that, and that is not a landing spot that I would be excited about in my rookie drafts. And now with the 4th pick in the NFL draft, Bucky Brooks has the Arizona Cardinals selecting wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. out of the Ohio State University, and we love Marvin Harrison Jr. Marvin Harrison Jr. is somebody who we have deemed a generational prospect. You look at what he has done at the college level, back-to-back seasons with 1,200 receiving yards, 67 and 77 receptions in those 2 years with 14 receiving touchdowns in both of those years combined. This is a guy who has no issues getting open. You send him here to Arizona. This is by far my favorite landing spot for Marvin Harrison Jr. in our rookie drafts. If he goes to the Arizona Cardinals, there is nothing that we should be worried about. There is nothing that we shouldn't be excited about. He would get to go into a wide receiver room where day one, he is the alpha wide receiver, the number 1 receiving target for Kyler Murray, a quarterback that we know likes to hit his number 1 receiver. And he'd be competing with guys like Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch, Zach Pascal. This is the competition that he would have to compete with. And really, that is not competition for Marvin Harrison Jr. at all. We know that they just lost Hollywood Brown. That was a 19% of their offensive receiving targets last year. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. would come in and probably command a 20 to 25% target share as a rookie in this offense. And if that were the case, that would be a guy who would definitely be in consideration for Offensive Rookie of the Year, despite how good the quarterbacks are in this class. And I know we just talked about Puka Nacua, who had the best offensive rookie wide receiver season of all time. Marvin Harrison Jr. could have the next best rookie season of all time if that were the case. This is a guy that I am so sold on in this landing spot. Really, in general, there isn't really a landing spot where I feel like we should really get scared for Marvin Harrison Jr., but this is the diamond spot for Marvin Harrison Jr. Love this fit entirely and absolutely love this fit for our rookie draft. And now with the 6th pick in the NFL draft, the New York Giants select Malik Nabers. Bucky Brooks has this as the fit for Malik, and honestly, I've seen this get mocked quite frequently. It does tell us that they would be moving forward with Daniel Jones as the quarterback of the future. And when we look at what Malik Nabers has done in college, you see consistent progression from him. 400 receiving yards as a freshman, as a sophomore, 1,000 receiving yards, and then as a junior, almost 1,600 receiving yards. Touchdown numbers, they continue to go up, where he had 14 as a junior last year at LSU. Obviously playing with Jayden Daniels, these guys worked incredibly well together. And you go over here to the New York Giants, and he'd be playing in a wide receiver room with Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, Isaiah McKenzie, Isaiah Hodgins. These are kind of the guys that would be there. Obviously, the big issue for the New York Giants is that they just lack talent. Malik Nabers is going to be an injection of talent into this offense, and whether or not you believe Daniel Jones is going to be a good quarterback, my guess is he's probably not going to be their long-term option for Malik Nabers, so you may have to wait a little bit longer for him to get a quarterback upgrade. Maybe this is a situation where we're viewing it a little bit like Drake London when he was first drafted to the Atlanta Falcons, and we had to wait for that quarterback upgrade. That could be a similar situation for Malik Nabers, but an offense that just lost Saquon Barkley and is looking for somebody to just come in and be a playmaker, Malik Nabers is about as good as it gets as a playmaker. So a good player, but maybe not a good situation overall. Something we would have to kind of wait for it to get a little bit better over time. But Brian Daboll, we know he's been a good offensive coordinator in the past. We know he calls good offenses. He doesn't necessarily have the best talent over there in New York, so it hasn't been the best representation of what he can do as a play caller at this level. But all in all, Malik Nabers, he goes number 6 overall to the New York Giants, and a fit that, yeah, probably not something that we love, but also something that is probably a very likely scenario for Malik Nabers and the New York Giants. And now we're at the 9th overall pick. The Chicago Bears hold this pick, and Bucky Brooks actually has them drafting Rome Odunze, wide receiver out of Washington. And this fit feels crazy to me because when you think about what they have added to this offense in this offseason, obviously Keenan Allen, DJ Moore being the 2 wide receivers, and now you add Rome Odunze to this offense. This is probably going to end up being the best wide receiver room in football if this were the case and if this were the pick for the Chicago Bears. And yes, we know that Rome Odunze stayed as a senior. We obviously want the early declares, but also with the COVID years, it's kind of messed a lot of this up. Guys are staying a little bit later, and obviously the NIL money has caused guys to stay a little bit later as well. So we probably need to get out of that thinking and out of that mindset when we're evaluating prospects. But when I look at the 2023 season for Rome Odunze, 14 games, 87 receptions, 1,500 yards, and 13 receiving touchdowns. He also put about 100 yards on special teams. Not like that really matters because I don't expect him to play special teams at the next level. But this fit would be something that I think a lot of people would probably look at and say, I don't know how I feel about that, because yes, he would have to compete with some very good wide receivers right away. And the reality is it would probably be a little bit of a slow burn for Rome Odunze, because I don't expect him to surpass Keenan Allen and I don't expect him to surpass DJ Moore as a rookie year one for him. But the good thing is we know that Keenan Allen is a little bit older. That probably isn't a guy who's going to be playing a ton of years left in his NFL career. So Rome Odunze would probably be the long-term option at that number 2 or maybe even that number 1 role as he develops at the next level. I mean, if you go over to Player Profiler, right now they have his best comparable player as Justin Jefferson. I think that is going to get people very excited. And obviously Matt Harmon, if you follow him on Reception Perception, he dropped his grades of Rome Odunze on how successful he is as a wide receiver, and he compared him to Devontae Adams. So some of the comparisons we're getting for Rome Odunze, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, things like that, it's going to get people very excited. This landing spot, yes, a little bit of a crowded wide receiver room and a little bit more of a slow burn, but ultimately this is something that could happen, and if it does happen, we need to be prepared for it. But I don't think that this should bump Rome Odunze outside of the top 7 prospects in our rookie drafts. I think he's almost locked in for me at the 106 in our rookie mock drafts, and somebody that I'm still very excited about despite the landing spot that he may receive. And now with the 10th overall pick in the NFL draft, Bucky Brooks has the New York Jets selecting Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia. And Brock Bowers is a tight end prospect that we've all gotten very excited about. If you look over at KTC right now, he is the number 2 overall ranked tight end, just behind Sam Laporta. So the expectations for Brock Bowers are going to be very high coming in as a rookie. You send him here to the New York Jets, and he would be playing in an offense that has Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams just coming over from the Chargers, and he'd be competing for tight end 1 with Tyler Conklin, Jeremy Ruckert. I don't think that's a competition for him. I think day one, he is the tight end 1 in this offense. Aaron Rodgers, obviously recovering from the Achilles, but the quarterback that we expect to roll into 2024 for the New York Jets. And although Aaron Rodgers is kind of nearing the end of his career, I do think that the Jets opting to take a pass catcher here who is going to dominate across the middle of the field is very ideal for fantasy football, because when we look at what we want out of a fantasy football tight end, we want a guy who can be probably the first or the second receiving option in his own offense, see a lot of targets, give you a lot of yards after the catch. Those are kind of the variables that we're looking for. And I would argue that Brock Bowers, as a rookie on this offense with the New York Jets, would be that number 2 receiving option. I think it's Garrett Wilson, then Brock Bowers, and then Mike Williams. But maybe that's just me sleeping on Mike Williams, but really recovering from the ACL and kind of his play style doesn't tell me that he's going to be a guy that gets targeted more than Brock Bowers. But in college, this is a guy who, yes, the receiving yards came down a little bit each year. This year, from a yards per game standpoint, it was higher than previous years, though he just played in less games. He played in 10 games, had his lowest receiving touchdowns of his career in 2023. So it seems like the hype came a little bit down, just a little bit in his junior year, because as a sophomore, as a freshman, we were talking about this guy as the next Travis Kelce. I still think that people are going to view him that way, and I think that's going to bump him up in your Dynasty Fantasy Football rookie drafts, because this is a guy that we're going to take at the 106, 107 type of range. At least in my opinion, that's where he should be going. And ultimately, some people are going to say that that's too rich, that's too high to draft a tight end in your Dynasty Fantasy Football drafts. And although I don't necessarily disagree, in your tight end premium leagues, you want to take a shot at elite tight end options, and this guy is a guy who could definitely be that for you. So I don't have any issues with you wanting to take Brock Bowers at the 107. Like I said, this is a guy who got top 10 pick draft capital and is going to a situation where he is going to be featured early on. So I do like this fit for Brock Bowers, and ultimately I would like this as a draft pick for your Dynasty Fantasy Football teams. And now with the 11th pick in the NFL draft, Bucky Brooks has the Minnesota Vikings selecting quarterback Drake Maye out of UNC. And this is one of the craziest picks in this mock draft to me, because I do not expect Drake Maye to fall to 11 to the Minnesota Vikings. In fact, with the Minnesota Vikings recently acquiring a second first-round pick, my thought as a Vikings fan is they would have to package 11, 23, and probably a 2025 first-round pick to move up if they wanted to go get Drake Maye. But Bucky Brooks has him falling to the Vikings here at 11 in this mock draft. So crazier things have happened, I guess, but this is something that I do not foresee happening. But let's talk about it anyways, because if this were the case, this would be very good for Drake Maye. I think this Minnesota Vikings landing spot is one of the best landing spots possible for a rookie quarterback. And really the reason why I think that is because of the infrastructure that has been built around this team. You would be be going in day one as a rookie, throwing the football to Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. You would also have 2 bookend offensive tackles to help protect you right away, and then obviously have a backfield with Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler. I think the offense would be spectacular, and it would be an offense where a rookie quarterback wouldn't be asked to do too much right away. Also, not to mention that this offense is ran by Kevin O'Connell, coming from the Sean McVay coaching tree. He is very offensive friendly, and obviously also a guy who played the quarterback position at the NFL level, so he knows what it takes to play it at the NFL level, even though he was never a star. I understand that, but this is a guy who can help you learn to play the quarterback position. He already has talked about wanting to be hands-on with the rookie quarterback. I think this is a great situation for Drake Maye, and Drake Maye has all of the tools. He has the arm talent. He struggles a little bit with the accuracy at times, but we've seen him put up some pretty elite numbers. In 2022, he went for 4,300 passing yards, 66% completion percentage with 38 touchdowns. Last year, a little bit of a down year for Drake Maye, but still 12 games for 3,600 yards, 63% completion percentage, and 24 touchdowns as well. I think Drake Maye going to the Minnesota Vikings is a pipe dream. Obviously, a dream that I would be very much into. I would love this for the Minnesota Vikings. And if this were the case, I would probably be considering Drake Maye at that 103 pick in my rookie drafts. And now the last offensive player selected in the first round of this Bucky Brooks mock draft is going to be Brian Thomas Jr. He is selected 18th overall by the Cincinnati Bengals. And I also feel like this is an interesting landing spot for Brian Thomas as well, because we think about the franchise tag of T. Higgins, which we know has caused some resentment in the building. T. Higgins is on Instagram talking about I'm locked up like he's Akon. And it's interesting to me to think that they would go in and get another first round wide receiver in Brian Thomas Jr., but this probably points to the fact that they would be wanting to move on from T. Higgins, even if it's just after this year, after the one franchise tag year, or maybe it's a tag and trade situation later this offseason, a draft day trade. There's a whole lot of scenarios that could happen. But what this would tell me is that they would be moving forward with Brian Thomas Jr. as the hopeful second receiving option to LSU's Jamar Chase, and also playing with quarterback from LSU, Joe Burrow. So we're just sticking with the LSU theme here in Cincinnati. Obviously, Thomas is an athletic playmaker. He has the size, he has the ball skills to where he can thrive playing alongside a guy like Jamar Chase. And this is also a guy who is an elite deep threat who has a nose for the end zone. You look at the 2023 season, 1,177 receiving yards, 17 touchdowns there at LSU. Ultimately, this would be a great fit for Brian Thomas Jr. And yes, we talked about it being potentially a slow burn if they choose to stick with T. Higgins year one on this franchise tag. But I think after year one, at the latest, it would be wheels up for Brian Thomas Jr. as the second receiving option for Joe Burrow in this Cincinnati Bengals offense. Now, that is all I have for you guys today. If you did enjoy the video, go ahead and hit that like button. It is the best free way to show this channel some support. Also, while you're down there, make sure you hit the subscribe button and that notification bell. It is the best way to always be notified of our future uploads. That way you never miss a future video, because I want to see you guys come back. I want to see you keep watching, helping us grow. We have a goal where we want to get to 1,500 subscribers by the NFL draft. I think we can do it. So if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. And last but not least, make sure you are joining our Discord. We do have a free Discord linked in the description. We're in there talking Dynasty Fantasy Football 24/7, 365. And that is the best way to get in there and help with future videos like rookie mocks, startup mock drafts, Q&As, all of that good stuff. And also, that is the best way to reach me if you ever have Dynasty Fantasy Football questions that you want answered. So go join that Discord. Like I said, it's free to join, and I hope to see you guys in there. But with all of that out of the way, I'll see you guys on our next video. But until then, peace out.